Daniel Carter sat in the observation deck of the Galactic Council chamber and watched the aliens argue. He had been sitting in the same spot for 3 hours now. His back hurt. His coffee had gone cold, and still, the council members talked in circles. The chamber was massive. It stretched up so high that Daniel could barely see the ceiling. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing data and images from across 12 galaxies. Representatives from 247 different species filled the curved rows of seats. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others floated in tanks of liquid. A few were just clouds of gas contained in special suits. Daniel had been humanity's envoy to the council for 2 years now. In all that time, he had never spoken a single word during a council session. He was not allowed to. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council 15 years ago, but they were still considered junior members. The rules were clear. For the first 50 years of membership, junior species could only observe. They could not vote. They could not speak. They could not participate in any meaningful way. It was called the Protocol of Restraint. The council said it taught humility and patience. Daniel thought it was just a way to keep new species quiet and powerless. Ambassador Laura Bennett sat next to him. She was his superior and humanity's official representative. She had warned him many times to stay silent and follow the rules. Breaking protocol would bring shame to all of humanity. It could get them kicked out of the council entirely. Daniel understood the stakes. He really did. But understanding something and accepting it were 2 different things. On the main floor of the chamber, Speaker Vex Thalon was talking. He was a Korthari, a species that looked like large reptiles with 6 arms. His scales were dark green and covered in age spots. He had been the council speaker for 3 centuries. His voice was deep and slow, like rocks grinding together. "The matter before us today is grave," Vex Thalon said. "The Kryn have attacked another colony in the disputed border zones. Initial reports suggest 12,000 casualties. A holographic image appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a planet engulfed in flames. Cities reduced to ash. Ships burning in orbit. Daniel felt his stomach twist. 12,000 dead. And the council was having a debate. "This is the 4th attack this month," said a representative from the Pelthian species. Her name was High Arbiter Zin Mora. She looked almost human, except for her silver skin and the 3rd eye in the middle of her forehead. "We must take action. Action must follow proper protocol," another voice argued. This one belonged to a Valorian, a species that resembled floating jellyfish. "We cannot simply intervene in sovereign territorial disputes." "Sovereign territorial disputes?" Zinmora's voice rose sharply. "They are committing genocide. Entire civilizations are being erased. We do not have confirmed evidence that this meets the legal definition of genocide under council law." The Valorian countered. "We must form a committee to investigate the claims properly." Daniel's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. A committee. They wanted to form a committee while people died. Laura placed a hand on his arm. She did not say anything, but her meaning was clear. Stay calm, stay quiet. Do not do anything foolish. The debate continued. Hours passed. Different species stood and spoke. Some called for intervention. Others urged caution. A few suggested sending diplomatic envoys to negotiate with the Kryn. One representative proposed holding a special summit to discuss the matter further. Nobody suggested actually stopping the Kryn. Daniel had been a soldier before he became a diplomat. He had served in Earth's military during the Contact Wars, the bloody conflict that erupted when humanity first encountered alien life. Back then, everything had been simple. There were enemies, there were friends. When someone attacked, you fought back. But the Galactic Council did not work that way. Everything was debates and protocols and careful political maneuvering. Nobody wanted to risk upsetting the delicate balance of power. Nobody wanted to take responsibility. A new holographic display appeared. It showed intelligence data about the Kryn's next target. Daniel leaned forward, studying the information carefully. The target was a colony world called New Haven. It belonged to the Mira, a peaceful species of farmers and artists. The Mira had only been in space for a few generations. They had no military, No defenses. Nothing that could stop a Kryn attack. The data estimated that 400,000 Mira lived on New Haven. Most of them were civilians. Families. Children. The Kryn fleet would reach them in less than 12 hours. A small figure appeared at one of the lower speaking platforms. It was the Mira representative. A being that looked like a cross between a deer and a bird. Her voice was high and trembling. "Please," she said. "Please help us. We have no weapons, no ships. Our people will die if the Kryn reach New Haven." Speaker Vexthalin nodded sympathetically. "Your concern is noted, Representative. This council understands your fear. We will take your words into careful consideration. Consideration will not save my people," the Mira representative said. Her voice broke. "They will be dead before you finish deliberating." "We must follow proper procedures," Vexthalin replied. His tone was not cruel, just tired. "We cannot act rashly. Rash action leads to greater conflicts." The Mira representative stood there for a moment longer. Then she slowly walked back to her seat. Her whole body seemed to collapse inward. Daniel watched her go. He thought about Earth. He thought about what humans would do if they saw someone in trouble. On Earth, people helped each other. If someone was drowning, you jumped in the water. You did not form a committee to study the best rescue procedures. But Earth was different, Daniel reminded himself. Earth was a hard world, violent, dangerous. Humans had evolved to survive earthquakes and hurricanes and predators that wanted to eat them. They had learned to act fast because hesitation meant death. The Galactic Council represented species from gentler worlds. They had evolved under easier conditions. They valued peace and stability above all else. They believed that patience and careful thought could solve any problem. They were wrong. Daniel knew they were wrong. But they would not listen to him even if he spoke. He was just a human. A junior member. A representative of a species that had barely left their own solar system. The session dragged on. The council voted to form a special committee to investigate the situation. The committee would need 2 weeks to prepare their initial report. New Haven would be destroyed in 12 hours. Daniel sat in his chair and felt something cold settle in his chest. He looked at Laura. She was watching the proceedings with a neutral expression, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. She knew what was happening. She knew it was wrong, but she followed the rules anyway. The rules, the protocols, the traditions, they were more important than lives, apparently. Daniel thought about his friends who had died in the contact wars. He thought about the promises he had made at their graves. He had promised to make the galaxy a better place. He had promised that their sacrifices would mean something. He could not keep those promises by sitting silent. The session was coming to an end. Speaker Vexthalin was preparing to close the meeting. In a few minutes, everyone would leave the chamber. They would go to their quarters and eat their dinners and sleep peacefully in their beds. Meanwhile, 400,000 Mira would wait in terror for the Kryn to arrive. Daniel made his decision. He stood up. Laura grabbed Daniel's arm immediately. Her grip was tight enough to hurt. "Sit down," she whispered urgently. "What are you doing?" Daniel did not sit down. Instead, he reached for the communication panel built into the observation deck. Every seat in the council chamber had one, but junior members were never supposed to activate them. The panel would give him direct access to the chamber's audio system. It would let him speak to the entire council. His hand hovered over the activation button. Once he pressed it, there would be no going back. Humanity's reputation in the council would be destroyed. Laura's career would be ruined. Earth might face sanctions or expulsion, but 400,000 Mira would have a chance to live. Daniel pressed the button. A soft chime echoed through the massive chamber. Every head turned toward the human observation deck. The conversation stopped. The entire council fell silent. Speaker Vexthalin's 6 arms went rigid with shock. "Who dares interrupt this session?" His voice boomed across the chamber. Daniel's throat felt dry. He had given speeches before, during his military days. But those had been to fellow soldiers. People who respected him. This was different. He was about to address the most powerful beings in the known universe, and he was breaking one of their most sacred rules. "My name is Daniel Carter," he said. His voice came out steady despite the fear in his gut. I am the human envoy to this council. Vex Thalan's scales darkened with anger. You violate the protocol of restraint. Junior members are forbidden from speaking during council sessions. This is an outrage. I know the rules, Daniel said. I have followed them for 2 years. I have sat in this observation deck and watched you debate while people died. I will not stay silent anymore. Chaos erupted in the chamber. Dozens of species started talking at once. Some shouted in anger. Others made strange sounds that Daniel's translator could not interpret. High Arbiter Zinmora stood up, her 3 eyes wide with shock. Laura was pulling at Daniel's sleeve. Stop this, she hissed. You are destroying everything we have built. What have we built, Laura? Daniel asked quietly. Though his communication panel was still active, everyone in the chamber could hear him. We have built nothing. We sit and observe while the galaxy burns. He turned his attention back to the council. The noise was getting louder. Security drones were starting to move toward the observation deck. Daniel knew he had very little time before they removed him by force. You have intelligence reports on your screens, Daniel said, speaking faster now. The Kryn fleet will reach New Haven in 11 hours and 43 minutes. 400,000 Mira civilians live on that world. They have no military, no defenses. They will die unless someone helps them. This council does not make decisions based on emotional appeals, Vex Thalan said coldly. We follow proper procedures. We have voted to form an investigative committee. Your committee will take 2 weeks, Daniel shot back. The Mira have 11 hours. Your procedures are going to kill them. A Valorian representative spoke up. The human does not understand how galactic governance works. We cannot simply intervene in every conflict. Such actions would destabilize the entire council. Daniel felt anger burning in his chest. I understand perfectly. You are afraid. You are afraid that taking action might upset the Kryn. You are afraid that other species might ask for help too. You are afraid that actually doing something might create problems for you. You overstep your bounds, Zinmora said. Her voice was sharp but not entirely unsympathetic. The protocol of restraint exists for good reason. Junior species must learn patience and wisdom before they are granted full membership. Patience? Daniel looked directly at her. How patient should the Mira be? Should they patiently wait while the Kryn burn their homes? Should their children patiently die because this council values procedures more than lives? He pulled up data on his personal device and transmitted it to the main holographic display. Images appeared in the center of the chamber. They showed the previous Kryn attacks. Destroyed cities. Burned fields. Bodies lying in the streets. These are the Vexar colonies, Daniel said, pointing to one set of images. Attacked 6 months ago. 50,000 dead. This council debated for 3 weeks and did nothing. These are the Thorian settlements. Attacked 2 months ago. 30,000 dead. Another debate. More committees. No action. He changed the images. This is Miraval Station. Attacked 3 weeks ago. 15,000 dead. And now New Haven will be next. How many more will die before you decide that following the rules is not worth the cost? A new voice spoke up. It came from the middle tiers of the chamber. The human speaks harsh truths. Daniel looked for the source. It was a Thorian representative named Kaelvin. His species looked almost human but with metallic blue skin and no hair. Kaelvin stood slowly, his face twisted with old pain. 50 years ago, my homeworld was attacked, Kaelvin said. We begged the council for help. We followed all the proper channels. We filed all the correct forms. We waited patiently for the council to act. He paused. The council was still debating when my world died. 3 billion Thorians, gone. Because patience and procedures matter more than lives. Silence fell across the chamber. Nobody had known that story. Kaelvin had kept it secret for half a century. Vex Thalan's expression was unreadable. Representative Kaelvin, these are serious accusations. They are not accusations. They are facts. Kaelvin looked around the chamber. How many others here have similar stories? How many of you have watched helplessly while the council debated instead of acting? Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Nobody spoke, but the silence itself was an answer. Daniel saw his opportunity. I am offering a solution. Earth has a fleet. We can reach New Haven before the Kryn. Let us help the Mira. Let humanity do what this council refuses to do. Absolutely not, Vex Thalan said immediately. Humanity is a junior member. You have no authority to conduct military operations in council space. Such actions would be considered an act of war. Against who? Daniel demanded. Against the Kryn? They are already at war with everyone. They just do it slowly enough that you can pretend not to notice. Zin Mora stepped forward. Even if your intentions are noble, you cannot simply ignore our laws. The protocol of restraint has governed this council for 10,000 years. If we allow one species to break it, the entire system collapses. Maybe it should collapse, Daniel said quietly. Maybe a system that lets people die to preserve its own rules deserves to fall apart. The security drones had reached the observation deck. They were tall machines made of gleaming metal, with multiple arms ending in various tools and weapons. Laura stepped back, but Daniel stood his ground. Remove the human from the chamber, Vex Thalan ordered. He will be held in custody pending formal charges. The drones moved closer. Their mechanical hands reached for Daniel. Then something unexpected happened. Kael'Vin spoke again. I stand with the human. The drones paused. Vex Thalan stared at the Thorian representative. What did you say? I said I stand with the human. Kael'Vin's voice was firm. If he is to be charged for speaking the truth, then charge me as well. I have been silent for too long. No more. Another voice joined him. It came from a Vexar representative. I also stand with the human. The Kryn destroyed 3 of our colonies. The Council did nothing. If Earth offers to help the Mira, I support them. More voices followed. One by one, representatives from smaller species stood up. They spoke in different languages, but the translation was always the same. I stand with the human. Not all of the Council agreed. Many of the older, more powerful species remained seated. They looked angry or confused. But enough representatives had stood that Vex Thalan could not simply ignore them. The speaker raised his 6 arms for silence. When the chamber quieted, he looked directly at Daniel. You have created chaos, human. You have violated sacred protocols and divided this council. What you have done may have consequences that echo across the galaxy for generations. I know, Daniel said. But at least the Mira might live to see those generations. Vex Thalan was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to address the full council. We will adjourn this session. All representatives will return in 6 hours for an emergency vote. We will decide then what action to take regarding both the Kryn situation and the humans' violation of protocol. The announcement shocked everyone. Emergency votes were rare. They required 3/4 of the council to agree. But it was something. It was more than another committee. The session ended. The security drones escorted Daniel away from the observation deck. Laura followed, her face pale with worry. As they walked through the corridors of the council station, she finally spoke. Do you have any idea what you have done? Daniel nodded. I broke the silence. Whatever happens next, at least I tried. Laura shook her head. Earth Command is going to lose their minds when they hear about this. Then they better move fast, Daniel said. Because whether the council approves or not, we need to reach New Haven before the Kryn do. The holding cell was not what Daniel expected. It looked more like a hotel room than a prison. There was a comfortable bed, a desk with a communication terminal, and a window showing the stars outside the council station. The security drones had left him there with instructions to wait for the emergency session. Daniel sat at the desk and activated the terminal. He had expected it to be locked, but apparently the council did not consider him dangerous enough to restrict his communications. Either that, or they wanted to see what he would do next. He opened a secure channel to Earth. The signal would take a few minutes to reach home. even with the quantum relay network. While he waited, he pulled up the tactical data on New Haven. The colony sat in a relatively isolated system. Only one major hyperspace lane passed near it, which made it easy for the Kryn to attack and hard for anyone to defend. The Mira had settled there because the soil was rich and the climate was perfect for their crops. They had never thought they would need military protection. The communication terminal beeped. Admiral Richard Barnes appeared on the screen. He was a hard-faced man with gray hair and scars from the contact wars. He had been Daniel's commanding officer back then. Now he ran Earth's entire military fleet. "Carter," Barnes said without preamble, "I just received a very interesting report from Ambassador Bennett. She says you started a revolution in the Galactic Council." "I would not call it a revolution, sir," Daniel replied. "More like a loud disagreement. You broke a 10,000-year-old protocol and nearly got yourself arrested. That counts as a revolution in my book." Barnes leaned forward. "Tell me straight. Was it worth it?" Daniel thought about the Mira representative, her voice breaking as she pleaded for help. He thought about Kael'vin revealing the death of his homeworld. He thought about all the other species who had suffered while the council debated. "Yes, sir. It was worth it." Barnes nodded slowly. "Good. Because we are about to make it official. I am scrambling the fleet to New Haven." Relief flooded through Daniel. "Thank you, sir. Do not thank me yet. This is going to get messy." Barnes pulled up a tactical display. "The Kryn have a significant force heading to New Haven. 6 heavy cruisers, 12 destroyers, and supporting craft. We can match their numbers, but it will be close." "What about the council vote?" Daniel asked. "Forget the vote. We are not waiting for permission to save innocent lives." Barnes's expression hardened. "The council can complain all they want. Earth did not join their club to watch people die." Daniel felt a surge of pride. This was why he had served in the military. This was why he believed in humanity. When faced with a choice between doing what was safe and doing what was right, humans chose right. "I am sending Captain Nicole Grant with the main battle group," Barnes continued. "The USS Defender and USS Pathfinder will lead the assault. They should reach New Haven approximately 30 minutes before the Kryn." 30 minutes is not much time," Daniel said. "It is what we have. Grant is good. She will make it work." Barnes paused. "I am also sending a message to all Earth ships in the sector. Any captain who can reach New Haven in time is authorized to join the defense. This is voluntary, but I expect most of them will answer the call." Daniel knew he would. If he were still a ship captain, nothing would stop him from helping. The communication ended. Daniel sat back in his chair and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were changing course and racing toward a colony they had never heard of, to save people they had never met. There was a knock at the door. It slid open to reveal Laura. She looked exhausted. Her hair was messy, and her clothes were wrinkled from hours of frantic diplomacy. "You should be resting," Daniel said. "I will rest when this is over." Laura sat down on the bed. "I have been making calls for the past 3 hours. Every species that stood up for you in the council chamber. I contacted them all. And the Thorians are sending medical ships. 3 of them, with full surgical teams and enough supplies to treat thousands of wounded." Laura smiled slightly. "Kael'vin personally approved the deployment. He says his people owe the Mira this much, since no one helped the Thorians when they needed it." Daniel felt warmth in his chest. "That is good. What about the others?" "The Vexar are providing intelligence data on Kryn tactics and ship capabilities. Apparently they have been studying the Kryn for years, waiting for someone to actually fight back." Laura pulled out a data pad and handed it to Daniel. "This is everything they have. Weak points in Kryn shields, preferred attack formations, command structure vulnerabilities. It could make the difference." Daniel scrolled through the data. It was extensive and detailed. The Vexar had clearly been preparing for this moment for a long time. "There is more," Laura said. "Even some of the species that did not publicly support you are helping quietly. A Pelthian ship will be in the New Haven sector when the fighting starts. Officially, they are there to observe. Unofficially, Zinmora made it clear they will defend themselves if attacked. And they happen to have very broad definitions of what counts as an attack. She is risking her position, Daniel said. A lot of people are risking a lot of things today because of what you did. Laura looked at him seriously. I was angry at first. I thought you had destroyed everything. But I was wrong. You did not destroy anything. You just exposed what was already broken. Before Daniel could respond, the terminal beeped again. This time, it was a message from Captain Grant. She appeared on the screen in full uniform, standing on the bridge of the USS Defender. Envoy Carter, she said formally. I wanted to let you know that the fleet is en route to New Haven. We will arrive in approximately 9 hours. The Kryn are still 11 hours out, so we should have time to set up defensive positions. Thank you, Captain, Daniel said. Be careful out there. Careful went out the window when we decided to start a war with the Kryn, Grant replied with a slight smile. But we will be smart about it. This crew has faced worse odds before. Daniel believed her. The USS Defender had fought in the contact wars. Her crew knew how to handle dangerous situations. One more thing, Grant added. We have been receiving messages from civilian ships, merchant vessels, transport haulers, even a few passenger liners. They are all volunteering to help with the evacuation of New Haven. None of them are military. But they have cargo holds and passenger space. They want to save as many Mira as they can. Daniel's throat tightened. How many ships? Last count was 47 and climbing. Word is spreading fast. Grant looked proud. Humanity is showing the galaxy what we are made of. The communication ended. Laura was smiling now, genuine hope on her face. 47 civilian ships. People are putting themselves in danger to help strangers. When was the last time the Council saw something like that? Never, Daniel said quietly. The Council does not work that way. They only act when it is safe and profitable. Well, they are about to learn that humans are different. The hours crawled by. Daniel watched the tactical displays as the human fleet raced toward New Haven. He saw the civilian ships joining the convoy, their slower engines struggling to keep up with the military vessels. He saw the Thorian medical ships maintaining formation. He saw the Vexar intelligence updates flowing in continuously. And he saw the Kryn fleet, advancing steadily toward their target like a pack of predators closing in on wounded prey. 6 hours after Daniel's speech, the Council reconvened for the emergency session. The security drones escorted him back to the observation deck. Laura walked beside him, and this time she did not look worried. She looked determined. The chamber was packed. Every representative was present. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Speaker Vex Thalon called the session to order. We gather to vote on 2 matters. First, whether the Council should intervene in the New Haven situation. Second, what punishment should be given to the human envoy for violating the protocol of restraint. Those votes are pointless now, Kaelvin said, standing up. Earth has already deployed its fleet. The humans are not waiting for our permission. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Many representatives had not known about Earth's deployment. This is an outrage, shouted a representative from one of the elder species. Humanity has no authority to conduct military operations in Council space. Then perhaps the Council should have acted when they had the chance, Kaelvin replied calmly. Vexathalan raised his arms for silence. Whether we approve or not, the situation is now in motion. The question before us is what the Council will do in response. Zinmora stood. I propose we officially sanction Earth's action. Make it a Council-approved humanitarian mission. If the humans are going to fight the Kryn anyway, we might as well support them. That would be unprecedented. Another representative argued. So is everything else that has happened today, Zinmora countered. The humans have exposed a fundamental flaw in our system. We can punish them for it, or we can learn from it. I vote we learn. The debate went on for another hour. But something had changed. The representatives were not just talking in circles anymore. They were actually discussing real action. Finally, Vex Thalon called for the vote. All in favor of sanctioning Earth's mission to defend New Haven, make your choice known. Lights lit up across the chamber as representatives voted. Blue for yes, red for no. Daniel watched the count climb. It was close, very close. The final tally appeared. 186 votes in favor, 61 against. The motion passed. Earth's mission was now official council business. The humans were no longer acting alone. They had the backing of the Galactic Council, or at least most of it. Vexthalon looked directly at Daniel. It seems you have won, human. But this victory comes with responsibility. If your fleet fails, it will reflect poorly on the entire council. If you succeed through excessive violence, it will create new problems. You have forced us to act. Now you must prove that action was the right choice. Daniel stood up, not caring anymore about the protocol of restraint. My people will not let you down. And we will not let the Mira down either. See that you do not. Vexthalon's expression was unreadable. This council is adjourned. May whatever gods you believe in grant you success. The session ended. Daniel and Laura rushed back to the communication terminal. They needed to contact the fleet and let them know they now had official support. But as Daniel looked at the countdown timer, his stomach churned. The Kryn fleet would reach New Haven in less than 3 hours. The battle was about to begin, and everything depended on what happened next. Captain Nicole Grant stood on the bridge of the USS Defender and watched New Haven grow larger on the view screen. The planet was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds drifting lazily across the surface. It looked peaceful, innocent. In less than 2 hours, the Kryn would try to destroy it. Status report, Grant said calmly. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Jake Morrison, looked up from his console. All fleet vessels are in position. We have 17 military ships forming the defensive perimeter. The civilian transports are entering orbit now to begin evacuation. How many Mira can we evacuate in the time we have? Maybe 50,000 if we are lucky. The civilian ships are not designed for mass transport. They are doing their best, but there are 400,000 people down there. Grant nodded. She had known the numbers would not work in their favor. Even if they won the battle, most of the Mira would still be on the planet when the fighting started. They would be in danger from stray weapons, fire, and debris. What about the Thorian medical ships? She asked. In position behind our lines. They are ready to receive casualties. Morrison paused. Captain, they are unarmed. If the Kryn break through, those ships will be defenseless. Then we make sure the Kryn do not break through. Grant turned to her communications officer. Open a channel to all ships in the fleet. The officer nodded. Channel open. Captain. Grant took a deep breath. Her crew was watching her. The other ship captains were watching her. Even the Mira colonists down on the planet were probably watching, hoping that these strange humans could save them. This is Captain Grant to all vessels, she began. In approximately 90 minutes, we are going to face a Kryn battle fleet. They outnumber us. They have more firepower. By all standard military calculations, we should lose this fight. She paused, letting that sink in. But we are not going to lose. Do you know why? Because we are human. Our ancestors survived on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. They faced predators, diseases, natural disasters, and they survived anyway. They did not survive by running away. They survived by standing their ground and fighting. Grant looked around her bridge. Every face showed determination. The Kryn think they can intimidate us. They think we will run when we see their fleet. They are wrong. We are going to show them what happens when you threaten innocent people in front of humans. We are going to show them that Earth protects those who cannot protect themselves. She raised her voice. Today, we fight not for territory or resources. We fight because it is the right thing to do. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity means. Defenders of New Haven, prepare for battle. The channel closed. Grant sat down in her command chair and pulled up the tactical display. The Kryn fleet would arrive from the western approach vector. Intelligence from the Vexor showed they favored a hammer and anvil formation. The heavy cruisers would form the hammer, smashing into the defensive line, while the destroyers spread out to surround and cut off retreat. Grant had no intention of retreating. Morrison, deploy the drones. I want a sensor net covering every approach vector. If the Kryn so much as twitch, I want to know about it. Deploying drones now, Captain. Hundreds of small sensor packages launched from the human ships. They spread out across the space around New Haven, creating an invisible web of detection equipment. The Kryn would not be able to surprise them. Down on the planet, the evacuation was proceeding as fast as possible. The civilian ships were landing in every city, every town, every farming community. Mira families rushed aboard with whatever belongings they could carry. Children cried. Parents tried to stay calm. Everyone knew there was not enough time or space to save everyone. The Mira planetary government had made a difficult choice. They were prioritizing children and elderly first, then adults. Anyone who could fight was being asked to stay behind and help with the defense, even though the Mira had no real weapons. Grant watched the evacuation numbers climb on her display. 15,000 evacuated, 20,000, 30,000. It was not enough. It would never be enough. Captain, Morrison said sharply. Hyperspace signatures detected. The Kryn fleet is arriving. Grant's hands tightened on the armrests of her chair. Battle stations. All ships. Prepare to engage. Alarms blared throughout the fleet. The Kryn vessels dropped out of hyperspace exactly where the Vexar intelligence said they would. 6 massive cruisers, each one the size of a city block, 12 sleek destroyers, built for speed and firepower. Supporting craft and fighters swarmed around them like angry insects. The Kryn fleet commander opened a communication channel. His image appeared on Grant's view screen. He was a towering figure, covered in thick armor plates. His face was hidden behind a helmet with glowing red eyes. Human vessels, the Kryn commander said. His voice was deep and mechanical. You are in violation of Kryn territorial claims. Withdraw immediately, or be destroyed. Grant stood up. This is Captain Nicole Grant of Earth. New Haven is a peaceful colony under Galactic Council protection. Your attack violates Council law. Stand down and withdraw your forces. The Kryn commander made a sound that might have been laughter. The Council is weak. Their laws mean nothing. We claim this system. The Mira will be removed. Not today, they will not. Grant's voice was ice cold. This is your only warning. Turn around and leave, or we will force you to leave. You dare threaten us? You are 17 ships, we are 18. Your weapons are inferior. Your crews are inexperienced. You will die quickly. Grant smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. You know what the problem is with bullies? You get so used to people running away that you forget what happens when someone stands their ground. Today, you are going to remember. She cut the communication. All ships, engage at will. Show them what Earth is made of. The battle began. The human ships moved first, accelerating hard toward the Kryn formation. It was an aggressive move, the opposite of what the Kryn expected. Most species would have formed a defensive position and tried to hold. Humans attacked. The Kryn cruisers opened fire with massive plasma cannons. Bolts of superheated energy crossed the distance between the fleets. The human ships dodged and weaved, their maneuvers seeming almost reckless. But there was method to the madness. The Vexar intelligence had told them that Kryn plasma cannons took 8 seconds to recharge. 8 seconds, when they could not fire. The human ships used those gaps ruthlessly, darting in to deliver strikes before pulling back. The USS Pathfinder scored the first hit, her railguns punching through the shields of a Kryn destroyer. The destroyer's armor held, but the impact sent it spinning off course. Good shooting, Pathfinder, Grant said. Morrison, target that same destroyer. Concentrate fire. The defender's weapons came to life. Railgun slugs traveling at a significant fraction of light speed hammered into the damaged destroyer. Its shields collapsed. Its armor cracked. Then it exploded in a brilliant flash. First blood to humanity. The Kryn fleet reacted with fury. They had not expected to lose a ship so quickly. Their formation shifted, the cruisers moving to protect the remaining destroyers. But that created gaps in their line. The human ships exploited those gaps immediately, striking at weak points and then retreating before the Kryn could bring their heavy weapons to bear. Grant watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. The humans were faster, more maneuverable. The Kryn had more firepower and heavier armor. It was a contest of speed versus strength, and humans had one more advantage that the Kryn did not know about yet. "Morrison, prepare the package," Grant ordered. "Package ready, Captain." The package was something Earth had developed during the contact wars. The Galactic Council had rules against certain types of weapons. Kinetic kill vehicles, biological weapons, planet-killing bombs, all banned. But Earth had found a loophole. The Defender launched what appeared to be a standard missile. The Kryn point defense systems tracked it and prepared to shoot it down. Then, the missile split into 100 smaller projectiles, each one moving at tremendous speed. The Kryn defenses could not track them all. Dozens of the projectiles slammed into a Kryn cruiser. Individually, they did little damage. But together, they overwhelmed the ship's shields and tore holes in its armor. Other human ships launched their own packages. The space around the Kryn fleet filled with thousands of small, fast-moving projectiles. The Kryn shields began to fail under the sustained assault, but the Kryn were not helpless. Their heavy cruisers concentrated their fire on the USS Pathfinder. Multiple plasma bolts hit her shields simultaneously. The shields held for a moment, then collapsed. The next volley struck the ship's hull directly. Grant watched in horror as the Pathfinder began to drift. Her engines were dead. Her weapons were offline. She was a sitting target. "Pathfinder, report," Grant demanded. The response was weak and filled with static. "This is Commander Lisa Park. We have heavy damage. Life support is failing. Requesting immediate assistance. All ships, form up on the Pathfinder. We are not leaving her behind." The human fleet moved to protect their wounded comrade. The Thorian medical ships began moving forward too, ready to evacuate casualties. The Kryn saw the opportunity and pressed their attack. Their destroyers swept around the human formation, trying to cut them off. Their cruisers advanced, weapons blazing. It was the moment Grant had been waiting for. "Now, Morrison, hit them with everything." The human ships had been holding back some of their firepower, making the Kryn think they were weaker than they were. Now they unleashed their full arsenal. Railguns fired in perfect synchronization. Missile volleys filled the space between the fleets. Energy weapons that the humans had kept hidden powered up and struck with precision. The Kryn formation broke apart under the sudden assault. One of their cruisers took a direct hit to its reactor and exploded. Two destroyers collided while trying to evade incoming fire. The carefully planned Kryn attack turned into chaos. And humans, Grant knew, thrived in chaos. They had evolved fighting in unpredictable environments. Chaos was their natural habitat. All ships, pursue. Do not let them regroup. The human fleet chased after the scattered Kryn vessels. Individual duels broke out across the battlefield. Human ships, smaller and faster, harried the larger Kryn cruisers like wolves bringing down prey. The Kryn commander tried to rally his forces, but it was too late. The humans had seized the momentum. More Kryn ships fell. The survivors began to retreat toward the hyperspace limit. Grant watched them go. Part of her wanted to chase them down and finish the fight. But her mission was not to destroy the Kryn. Her mission was to protect New Haven. "Let them run," she said. "All ships, return to defensive positions." Morrison. Damage report. 4 ships with heavy damage, including the Pathfinder. 2 ships with moderate damage. Casualties are still being counted but appear minimal. The Thorian medical ships are moving to assist. Grant allowed herself a small smile. And the Kryn? 6 vessels destroyed, 4 heavily damaged and retreating. The remaining ships are withdrawing from the system. The battle was over. New Haven was safe. Grant opened a channel to the planet. "This is Captain Grant to New Haven. The Kryn have been driven off. You are safe now." The response was immediate. Thousands of Mira voices crying out in joy and relief. Some were laughing. Some were crying. All of them were alive because humans had decided that following rules mattered less than saving lives. Grant sat back in her chair and let out a long breath. They had won. Against the odds, against a superior force, they had won. "Captain," Morrison said quietly, "we are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. Envoy Carter wants to speak with you." Grant smiled. "Put him through." Daniel stood in the council chamber and watched the recordings from New Haven. The holographic display showed the human fleet engaging the Kryn, the brilliant flashes of weapons fire, the explosions as ships died. He watched the Pathfinder get hit and nearly destroyed. He watched the other human ships form a protective wall around their wounded companion. He watched the Kryn retreat in disorder. But what affected him most was the footage from the planet's surface. Mira families hugging each other in relief. Children who thought they would die now playing in the streets. Elderly Mira, who had been ready to face their end, now watching the sunset with tears in their eyes. 50,000 Mira had been evacuated. 350,000 remained on the planet. All of them were alive because one human had decided to speak when he was supposed to stay silent. The council chamber was full again. Every representative was present for what everyone knew would be a historic session. The trial of Daniel Carter had become something much larger. It had become a trial of the council itself. Speaker Vexthalon sat in his elevated chair and looked down at Daniel. The old Korthari's expression was difficult to read. His scales had shifted to a lighter shade, which Daniel had learned meant deep thought. "Envoy Carter," Vexthalon began, "you violated the protocol of restraint. You spoke when you had no authority to speak. You defied the council's rules and traditions. Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Daniel stepped forward. Laura was beside him, ready to speak as his legal representative. But Daniel had decided to speak for himself. "I broke your protocol, yes. I will not deny that or apologize for it." Daniel looked around the chamber. "But I want you all to understand why I did it. I come from Earth, a world that has seen terrible things. My people have fought wars, committed atrocities, made mistakes that haunt us still. But we have also learned something important from our history. We learned that silence in the face of evil is the same as approval. We learned that following rules blindly can lead to horrors." He pulled up an image on the holographic display. It showed a Mira child, maybe 6 years old, holding a stuffed animal and smiling at the camera. "This child is alive today because I broke your protocol. So are hundreds of thousands of others. If following your rules meant letting them die, then your rules are wrong." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some representatives looked angry. Others looked thoughtful. High Arbiter Zinmora stood up. "The human makes a compelling argument. But what he fails to understand is that our protocols exist for good reason. Without them, the council would descend into chaos. Every species would act on their own whims. Wars would erupt constantly. With respect, High Arbiter, I understand that perfectly," Daniel replied. "I am not arguing against all rules. I am arguing against rules that prevent you from doing what is right. The protocol of restraint was meant to teach wisdom and patience, but it has become an excuse for inaction." Kael'Vin spoke next. "The human is correct. I remained silent for 50 years after my world was destroyed. I followed the protocols. I did everything the council asked of me. And what did it accomplish? Nothing. My people are still dead. My world is still gone. I should have spoken up. I should have done what Envoy Carter did." More representatives began to stand and speak. One by one, they shared their own stories. Species that had been attacked and received no help. Colonies that had been abandoned because intervening would violate some obscure protocol. Civilizations that had nearly been wiped out while the council debated. The flood of testimonies went on for hours. Daniel listened to all of them and felt sick. How many people had died because the council valued procedure over lives? How many worlds had burned while representatives argued about proper channels and correct forms? Finally, Vexthalon raised his 6 arms for silence. The chamber quieted. The old speaker looked tired, like he had aged a century in the past few days. "I have led this council for 300 years, he said slowly. "I have always believed that our strength came from our careful deliberation. Our wisdom came from our patience. Our civilization endured because we did not act rashly." He paused. "I was wrong. I. 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 I was wrong." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Speaker Vexthalon had never admitted to being wrong about anything. The human envoy has shown us a mirror. And what we see is not pleasant. We have become so focused on maintaining our systems that we forgot why those systems exist. They exist to protect people, to preserve life, to promote peace and prosperity. Vexthalon looked directly at Daniel. When our systems fail to do those things, it is the systems that must change, not the goals. The speaker stood up from his chair, a rare gesture that commanded attention. "I propose that we reform the protocol of restraint. Junior species should still observe our proceedings and learn from them, but in cases of clear humanitarian crisis, any member species, junior or senior, should have the right to speak and call for action." Zin Mora stood as well. "I second this proposal. Furthermore, I suggest we create a rapid response framework. When innocent lives are in immediate danger, the Council should be able to act within hours, not weeks." The debate that followed was intense but different from the usual Council deliberations. This time, representatives were not trying to protect their own interests. They were genuinely trying to fix a broken system. Proposal after proposal was discussed. Some were adopted. Some were modified. Some were rejected. But slowly, a new framework emerged. Junior species would have emergency speaking rights. A rapid response committee would be formed, with the authority to authorize humanitarian missions without a full council vote. The definition of humanitarian crisis would be clearly spelled out to prevent abuse. And perhaps most importantly, the council would conduct regular reviews of its own protocols to ensure they still served their intended purpose. After 12 hours of debate, Vexthalon called for a final vote. "All in favor of adopting these reforms, make your choice known." Lights lit up across the chamber. Blue, blue, blue. An overwhelming majority. The reforms passed. Vexthalon turned to Daniel. "Envoy Carter, you violated our laws. But in doing so, you saved lives and improved our civilization. The Council has decided that your actions, while technically illegal, were morally justified. You will not be punished. Instead, you will be honored." Daniel had not expected that. "Honored? You will be the first recipient of the Council's new Humanitarian Merit Award. You risked everything to save people who were not your own. That is the highest form of courage." Vexthalon's scales shifted to a warm golden color. "Humanity will also be granted full council membership, effective immediately. You have proven that you understand what this council should stand for, better than many species who have been members for millennia." The chamber erupted in applause. Not all representatives were clapping, but enough were that it created a thunderous sound. Laura grabbed Daniel's arm, tears in her eyes. "You did it. You actually did it." Daniel shook his head. "I just spoke up. Everyone else did the hard part." Over the next few weeks, the changes rippled across the galaxy. The Council's Rapid Response Committee prevented 3 more attacks by the Kryn, deploying peacekeeping forces before any colonies were destroyed. Other aggressive species, seeing that the Council was finally willing to act, began to reconsider their expansion plans. The Kryn themselves requested diplomatic talks. Faced with a unified council that would actually fight back, they realized that conquest was no longer profitable. The negotiations were difficult, but eventually, a peace agreement was reached. New Haven became a symbol of the new council. The Mira built a monument in their capital city, showing humans and Mira standing together. They named their largest city Carter's Hope. Daniel visited New Haven once, a few months after the battle. The Mira greeted him like a hero. Children who had been evacuated came back to thank him. Adults who had thought they would die held ceremonies in his honor. But the moment that stayed with Daniel was when a young Mira child, the same one from the photograph, walked up to him. She held out her stuffed animal and said in broken English, "Thank you for saving my family." Daniel knelt down to her level. "You are very welcome. Stay safe." "Okay?" The child nodded and ran back to her parents. Daniel watched her go and felt something settle in his chest. This was why he had broken the protocol. This was why it had all been worth it. Back on Earth, Admiral Barnes called Daniel into his office. "So, full council membership. That is quite an accomplishment." "It was a team effort, sir," Daniel said. "Do not be modest. You started something that no one else had the courage to start." Barnes leaned back in his chair. "I have a new assignment for you. The council wants you to lead their humanitarian response initiative. You would be coordinating relief efforts across the galaxy." Daniel thought about it. It was important work. Vital work. But it meant spending even more time away from Earth, dealing with council politics and bureaucracy. Then he thought about the Mira child and her stuffed animal. He thought about all the other children across the galaxy who might need help someday. "I will do it," he said. Barnes smiled. "I thought you would say that. Earth is proud of you. Carter, you showed the galaxy what humans stand for." 6 months after the New Haven crisis, the council held a memorial service for all those who had died in conflicts that could have been prevented. Representatives from every species attended. They read names, they shared stories, they lit candles that floated in zero gravity, creating a field of lights that represented lost lives. Daniel stood with Laura and watched the candles drift through the chamber. Each light was someone who had died while the council debated. There were millions of them. "Do you think we can save everyone?" Laura asked quietly. "No," Daniel said honestly. "But we can try to save as many as possible. And that has to be enough." Vex Thalon approached them. The old speaker had become something of a friend over the past months. He had thrown his full support behind the reforms and worked tirelessly to implement them. "Envoy Carter," he said, "I wanted to thank you again. You forced me to see what I had become. A guardian of traditions rather than a guardian of people. That was not an easy thing to confront." "You could have fought the changes," Daniel pointed out. "You chose to support them instead. That takes courage too, perhaps." Vex Thalon looked at the floating candles. "I think about my younger self sometimes. The person I was when I first joined the council. I believed in justice and compassion back then. Somewhere along the way, I forgot. You reminded me." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the memorial. "Do you know what the greatest lesson is in all of this?" Vex Thalon asked. "What?" "That sometimes the most important voice in the room is the one that was told to be quiet." The old Korthari placed one of his hands on Daniel's shoulder. "Never stop speaking, human. The galaxy needs voices like yours." Daniel looked out at the council chamber. At the representatives from hundreds of species. At the candles representing millions of lost lives. He thought about how much had changed in such a short time. He thought about how much more still needed to change, and he made a promise to himself. He would never be silent again when people needed help. He would never let rules and protocols matter more than lives. He would make sure that the council remembered what it had learned. Because that was what humans did. They spoke up. They stood their ground. They protected those who could not protect themselves. The galaxy had learned that lesson at New Haven. Daniel would make sure they never forgot it. Years later, historians would point to the New Haven crisis as the turning point in Galactic Council history. The moment when an outdated system was forced to evolve. The moment when tradition gave way to compassion. But for Daniel Carter, it would always be simpler than that. It was the moment when he chose to break the silence because staying quiet would have cost innocent lives. And he would make that choice again, every single time.